What exactly is work? Is what I'm doing right now work? I don't think many people would consider what I'm doing work. I'm not getting paid for it, and I don't find it hard. So does that make it not work? If somehow I was paid for doing what I'm doing right now, would it then be considered work? Is receiving a paycheck for doing what you're doing work? There are people who play instruments, and there are people who play instruments and get paid for it. But it is called playing. So I'm not sure, is that considered work? There are also people now that play video games, and they get paid thousands, maybe even millions of dollars to play video games, and they're the best in the world. But I don't think many people would consider playing video games work. I think the people who make the computer that I use to make these videos, I think everyone would agree that they're working, but they don't get paid much more than what I get paid to make these videos, which most people would not call work. In many cases, what I'm doing at least the format does pay people a lot of money, a lot more money than the people who make the computers that record, podcasts and various shows. And I think everyone would agree that, a podcast would be considered work, or a radio show would be considered work. After the point that someone is getting paid a lot of money for it, I think people would think someone like Howard Stern is working, that they work for a living. Or that Bill Burr does he work? He's a stand-up comedian. Lots of stand-up comedians say that their job is very hard. And I've tried it once, and it was probably the most difficult thing I've ever tried to do. I lasted maybe 30 seconds trying to be a stand-up comedian. But then a lot of people wouldn't think that it's work, even though it seems that they wouldn't do it because, so many people are afraid of public speaking. I guess another job like this would be a DJ. Like, is a DJ working? It certainly costs a lot of money to travel from town to town and promote yourself and put up a nice show. And lots of DJs make way more money than a typical blue collar worker. Even lower scale DJs make very good livings. A very good living. But mostly things like what I've been describing, people call doing nothing. And I'm not sure I quite understand what is the sort of threshold or the defining property of doing work and doing nothing. Where does it begin and end? And if you examine it, you start to come to the realization that people who talk about working hard and doing work and who are the same people that say uh, something is doing nothing and not hard. They're full of prejudice, I guess. It's they're awful, I think, because you think about it even more, and say something becomes automated. So say you worked hard as a welder at one point, as a spot welder on an assembly line, but then a robot replaces you, like a robotic arm that welds two pieces of metal together. Is that still considered work? Or say you're an oil worker, you're working an oil rigger, I think. It's considered, pretty heretical to question an oil worker in some way, that they're not working. It's sort of considered the holy grail of working, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words, but it's sort of the unspoken rule that an oil worker is the hardest worker, I guess. But say oil becomes much less valuable, and then an oil worker is not needed because, there's alternative energy like solar panels and stuff like that, and there's way more oil workers than there are jobs in the oil industry. Then are those workers, those former workers, are they still doing work, or are they doing nothing? And it seems quite unfair to accuse anyone of doing nothing and claim that you're doing work, because what is considered work is changing constantly, and also what various people do is completely different from what other people are doing, and all of it is called work, and I don't think that's entirely fair. The person who made this computer, they're probably working harder than the person who designed this computer, but they're not paid a living wage to do their work, whereas the person who designed this computer is probably paid, way more money than most people. Like, or how about someone that comes up with a legal scam? They're given much more money than someone who built the computer or designed the computer. And so when I hear someone talk about doing work or doing nothing, I find it very hard to respect what they have to say. I don't know if it's so easy to define what is work and what is nothing. And I think in a lot of ways I'm envious also that someone can just make those boundaries and accept them in their mind, because that's not how my mind works and how I think about the world. I can't just accept something on faith that it's right or wrong, or black or white, or doing work or doing nothing. To me, it's just not so clear. But I guess I'm in the minority, and I don't have enough power really to say that what I'm doing is not nothing, but is work. Unless people start liking it, then maybe it's not doing nothing. But I'm not sure, and I'm not really doing this because I want people to like it. Although it would be nice. But yeah, I'm just doing this to practice thinking off the top of my head. So I guess it would be considered practice rather than work.